Eskom says it will exhaust all its options to ensure that it receives the money it's owed by municipalities. Late last week, the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled in Eskom's favour and ordered the Letsameng municipality in the Free State to pay its outstanding debt, which amounts to over 100 million rand. Eskom's owed around 44 billion rand by over 200 municipalities.
There are various mechanisms that can be employed to enforce that court order. Amongst others is to go directly to the National Treasury and claim directly that particular municipality's share to be paid to Eskom of the electricity services, instead of going to a municipality where it then gets misused and never reaches the supplier, which is Eskom. There are other actions that are still open to Eskom, including, where possible, attaching bank accounts and indeed some movable assets of municipalities. Of course, this Eskom will do in a manner that does not further cripple the capacity of these municipalities to be able to deliver the services that the community expects from them. It will also be done, of course, in a manner that allows the municipalities to still be able to go collect the revenue from their customers, who, it must always be said, actually pay for their services to the municipalities, but in many instances the monies or the revenue for electricity does not reach Eskom.
News this afternoon, the Legal Resources Centre winning a court ruling to force the Eastern Cape Department of Education to provide stationery, including textbooks, to around 3,000 schools in the province. This morning, the High Court sitting in Makhanda ruled that the department must ensure that all learners in public schools have these books by the end of March. That's in just 2 weeks' time. Let's speak now to an attorney for the Legal Resources Centre, McConnachie. Cameron, good afternoon to you. What exactly were you asking for from the court? What do you want the department to do?
Deliver stationery and textbooks to all the schools in the Eastern Cape. There's been a real, I don't know what you call it, complete mess up this year. At the beginning of the year, the department told schools that they didn't have money for stationery and textbooks. And so children returned to school when rotational timetabling ended particularly, and they didn't have textbooks or stationery. So there has been some delivery. But it's been chaotic. There's been very little information coming from the department about when they would actually deliver to schools. So despite our best efforts to get that information from them just through correspondence, we ultimately represented the Kula Development Forum in an urgent application to direct the department to deliver the stationery and the textbooks by the end of this month.
Did the department actually respond to you in court? Did they argue against you?
So the matter was heard. The major point of contention was the date. The department said that they would deliver by the end of April. Our clients really felt this was just unacceptable. So the major issue in court today was around the date. But Judge Lowe was sympathetic to our case. And he ordered that it needs to take place by the end of this month, March.
It is bizarre to me that every year the Department of Basic Education has to do a series of things that it does every year. It has to do them at the same time. It knows, 10 years from now, it knows that it will need to get a certain number of books to children in schools in Makhanda. It knows this. Has there been any explanation at all as to why it didn't do it this year? I mean, and no doubt the pandemic will come into it somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. So there was very little explanation, and that was one of the things that came out in argument today was the court or judge was incredibly frustrated with the complete lack of an explanation for why this had happened. What you can glean from some of the memorandums that were shared with schools at the beginning of the year was that there was massive budget cuts with no real explanation where the money was being sent to, but presumably it was just sort of austerity measures in the wake of COVID. What we have tried to do in this case is to point out that you can't just, or the department can't just use the lack of budget as an excuse. And it seems that when there are austerity budgets in place, the first to fall or the first to feel the impact are things like education. So that's really what a lot of the argument was about today, was trying to emphasize the need for the state to really not go to education every time that there have to be budget cuts.
Does the department, as far as you are aware, actually have the books? It's one thing if they've got the books and they're sitting in Gqeberha somewhere and they haven't been transported to Makhanda. It's an hour and a half down the road, maybe a bit longer with the potholes at the moment. But if they don't have the books, then they won't be able to comply with the court order.
Yeah, so there was some information was put up by the department around the amount of books that they have. But this information was very confusing. But apparently they have up to 85% of the textbooks that are needed are already in warehouse. So that was one of the things that we were very confused about, and emphasizing why do we have to wait till the end of April if 85% of the books are already in the warehouses? So even subject, right after the order being handed down, in speaking to the attorneys for the department, it does seem like plans are quickly being made to get the textbooks out of the warehouses and to the schools more quickly.
Are you optimistic that it'll actually happen? I mean, you shouldn't have to go to court in the first place. We've seen this before. For some of us, the memories of Limpopo, of course, are very much with us. You would have thought that what happened back then, a long time ago now, should really not be repeated under any circumstances. And yet, here we are, 2022.
Agreed. So it is amazing that this is still going on. Whether they'll comply to the letter, I'm not sure, but we hope they will. There's a structural interdict in place, a lot of reporting mechanism, a strong element of reporting that the department has to do to the court, exactly where they are in the process, exactly which schools have received, or which schools, more importantly, haven't received, and when they will receive. So we think that sort of information will help with monitoring of the implementation of the order. And yeah, it's maybe we have also asked that stationery, and it's been ordered that stationery itself be included in the right to basic education. So the Limpopo case was really all about textbooks, which this case is too, but we've tried to clarify that the right to basic education also includes the right to stationery. So we hope that maybe that will trickle through and make an impact going forward to make sure that stationery is included and does get rolled out next year on time. And that's the last thing, is that we have included, there is a paragraph in the order which says the department has to report on their progress by the end of September this year on their procurement and delivery of stationery and textbooks for 2023.
What impact is all of this having on children? I mean, I know there are other problems in Makhanda at the moment, just to try and get water in some cases, trying to make sure that there are proper services. But what impact has this been having on children in schools? They won't have been getting the education that they need.
Absolutely. So it's not just Makhanda, but it's really the whole province. Over 3,000 schools haven't received the textbooks or the textbooks. Some have received stationery now, a lot have received stationery. But a lot of the papers in this case dealt with, were sort of affidavits from mothers of children, just explaining the impact it was having, as well as from teachers. And some teachers said that already this year they've lost up to 6 weeks of teaching and learning, just because children don't have anything to write on. There's some photocopying of textbooks going on. Children lose the papers. They don't have flip files to keep them in. Textbooks are in color generally, and so when you're handing out a photocopy of a textbook where you're being asked to count how many red apples there are and how many blue apples there are, that becomes quite difficult when it's in black and white. So the impact, there's definitely a major impact, and we hope that this order will go some way to getting textbooks and stationery into classrooms very quickly.
Cameron McConnachie, thank you very much indeed. An attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Of course, they won that court ruling in the High Court sitting in Makhanda. I do appreciate the time.